Thank you so much for joining this session today with us and DesignBridge as well to talk about their internship program, The Start, and talking about agency life as well. It's really lovely to have you all here, and thank you as well to DesignBridge for running this session to talk about the role as well. I'm Miles from Creative Mentor Network. I'll be here if you've got any questions or any tech problems as well, but I'm going to hand over to DesignBridge, who are going to lead on this session. If you've got any questions throughout it as well, please just pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end or drop them down. Yeah, there'll be a little Q&A session at the end about anything people have spoken about today or specific things about the application and the role. But yes, I will pass over now to DesignBridge to Laura, who's client business lead. Did I get that right? Sorry.
Yeah, it's a
congratulations. Sorry, Laura.
Laura, we can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Well, hopefully now you can all hear me. This is part of being an agency, is trying to figure out how all the tech works. So it's a good intro. We are actually all in one room. We're all just have little faces on there so you can actually see us. What we've got today is we've got a couple of different bits to take you through. We'll pop our screen up now. We've got a little deck. Hopefully things like animations, etc. will work. All of that kind of good stuff. So just to recap before we get into it, so what we will be taking for you today is a bit of who we are and what we do as DesignBridge and partners, a little bit of a glimpse into agency life. We've got all of our teams here pretty much, and then also talking about The Start, which is our junior program, which we're super excited about, and hopefully you guys will be too. So if we move on, so what we're going to talk to you first is, who is DesignBridge and Partners? We are a newly formed superpower in the world of design. So we're super excited about it. We've got loads to offer the industry. With us today, we have 6 of us. I've just realized it's all girls. I promise we do also have male creatives. They're just not here today. So I myself work in client leadership with Matilda, who you'll see later. We've got Sarah and Jenny from our strategy team, and Emily and Leah from design. So you'll be hearing from all of us at various points today. So I won't natter on at you for the whole time, but just so you get a little bit of a glimpse into what we'll do. So first of all, DesignBridge and Partners has been formed essentially to redefine the power of design. For us, design is at the heart of everything that happens with our brands, with companies, across categories. We are uniquely positioned to support our clients in a way that lots of other agencies have specific niches, but actually design lives at the heart of everything that we do. And we think that we can solve problems, not with an ad campaign, not with a media plan, but with holistic design. So that's where we really feel that we can impact for our clients, for their businesses, and for the consumers in the world that we work with. So we are a massive team. We are cross-brand across more than 15 studios. So no matter where you are, you're bound to find some of us. We're a bit like rabbits, you can't get rid of us. And what that really gives us is the unique opportunity to support our clients across markets. Lots of our clients work globally. So we'll have teams in Singapore working on them, in London, in New York, in Brazil. So suddenly we get a brief and we go, oh, we actually need a little bit of insight from somewhere else. We have teams that we can call on. We can get those local insights and we can make sure that we have feet in the ground in the markets to understand what's going on, because at the heart of all of this are people. And everyone seems to be stepping up and liking what we're doing. It's not the only way that we judge how we do. We want to support our clients. We want to see success for them in lots of different spheres. But as an industry, we are one of the most awarded agencies across Cannes, across D&AD, Pent Awards, Dieline. So not only are our clients happy, the industry is recognizing the work that we are doing. So great to see how that's coming to life for us all. And what do we think we can actually solve with design? So the answer is we basically think it can solve anything, across from inspiring our brands about changing the world, getting consumers to change their activities, whether that's in sustainability, whether that's talking about growth, understanding how people move and talk and feel in the world helps us to engage our brands. So we're helping our clients to deliver their business growth, we're helping people to connect with brands, and we're helping hopefully to make a change in the world for the better. And we're pretty pleased with our client roster. If you can think of anyone that you'd like to work with, hopefully these are some of the names that we work with. We have everything from booze to gaming to banks to cars. Everything is here. There's so many opportunities to get involved, to switch it up. No day is the same, which we'll talk a little bit about more, but our clients make all of this possible. We are incredibly passionate about them as people, as brands, and as businesses, and that's what helps us to achieve that kind of award-winning success. So if we zoom in a little bit on London, who is here today, we'll talk to you a little bit about what life is like in our studio. You can see some of our faces here in Clerkenwell, and what we get up to. So we are really proud to say that we are certified as both a great place to work for everyone, but especially for women. We have an incredible host of senior female leadership throughout DesignBridge. And we want to make sure that DesignBridge is a really inclusive and supportive place for everyone to work. We want to get everyone involved, and that is across, making sure that we're going out there talking to you guys, talking to unis, working with Accumulate, this is the art school for the homeless. We want to make sure that we are really capturing everyone and bringing them on this journey so that our work can reflect real life and make sure that everyone is empowered to do great design work. And what does that look like? Well, this might not be exactly what you expect in your 9 to 5. There are a few familiar faces in here that you've got on the call, whether that's being out on a shoot, whether it's seeing some of your live work at RHS, popping up to a distillery in Scotland, heading out to an awards. It's all going on all the time. And part of what we do is work hard, play hard. You can see here, we've got some cans that we designed for our Christmas party last year. Everything seems to be going on. We want to make sure that our studio is a space that really inspires creativity, and part of that is having a great time, getting out, seeing what's out there, and making sure that we're up to date with the latest news, the latest trends, the latest everything, basically. And this is a little show reel. I'm hoping it's going to play, but we'll give it a go. Amazing. So I'm going to pass over to Sarah to talk a little bit about what actually a career in the creative industry looks like.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. I know that we just spoke to you about what we do as a studio, but it's important for us to kind of take a step back and look at the industry in general. And it is very vast and it continues to grow. So there are a multitude of pathways. If you go on the next slide, you can see that there are a multitude of pathways into the industry, from film and TV, architecture, technology, gaming, software, computing, all of these different avenues that people come into the industry with. But I don't want you to feel as if you don't see something on the left-hand side that you don't recognize, that you can't get into the creative industry. But one thing hopefully you take away from this call today with us is that creativity is a flexible term, in the sense of you don't necessarily have to know how to draw or animate or things of that nature. You just kind of need to have an imagination and be able to articulate your ideas and what you're thinking in a way that is selling stories to brands and championing the things that are important to these specific brands and who they're trying to speak to. If you go on the next slide, you can see that based on these different pathways, there are different job roles that are available. Again, this is not limited to just the screen. There are a multitude of jobs that are currently available within an industry. Over the next 10 years, there's most likely going to be job roles that don't necessarily exist right now. In a few slides, you understand the actual impact that that the creative industry actually holds on the UK in general, and the importance of it in terms of the future and growth. And we know that AI is one of the biggest things that has come out over the last year, and that's something that people didn't necessarily anticipate. So it just goes to show the creative industry is broad and it's always growing, and there's different opportunities, and you can always specialize into different things. And if you go on the next slide, you might be saying, okay, I hear you, but what necessarily does this look like? So in a moment, we'll play you a short clip of a video that kind of breaks down the creative process and the different ways creativity kind of comes around. So you see in terms of people storyboarding, you see people like animating, doing the behind the scenes. And it's kind of important for you to know that everybody in the creative process is an integral piece in order for us to launch the project. So no, we can never do it all ourselves. It's basically a collaboration between all the different departments. So all of us on the call here together today, we basically work together on an everyday basis across the triumvirate. So from the client leadership to strategy to design, in order to deliver pieces of work that you see in the wild. So in a moment, in the clip, I want you to kind of pay attention to the different roles that you're seeing in terms of like how, if those resonate with you, and they range from everything from sonic to motion to strategy to fashion design to cutting of the materials, things of that nature. So I'll let it play. So yeah, that kind of captures the day in the life of kind of what is in the industry, the types of roles that are available within it. And this page always makes me laugh because most people whenever they hear that we work within the creative industry, they're like, but do you actually make money? Are you like the finance bros or the finance gals are making more money? But contrary to popular belief, the creative industry does have money within it, and there is definitely potential to make money within the industry. And the creative industry in general contributes to £116 billion to the UK's economy, which makes more than the automotive, life sciences, aerospace, and oil and gas sectors combined, which just goes to show the actual amount of investment that goes into the creative industry in general, and also that investment is built into its people. So if anybody ever tries to say that there's no money within the creative industry, you can just bring up the stat and say that's a lie, because you know different. And the next slide You can also see that's to my earlier point around job roles. There is currently 2.2 million jobs available within the creative industry, and this branches across a multitude of different pathways, avenues, and the creative industry, there's always jobs being created within the industry. Like I mentioned earlier, a job today might not exist right now, but it's going to exist in 10 years time. And you might be that person to kind of carve that niche in order to create that job. So there definitely is excitement in terms of what is possible and what the potential is in the industry. And the next slide is just kind of saying that over the past, let's say 12 years or so, there has been an increase in the number of jobs within the industry, and which is basically, it's been 30% since, which was basically documented in 2011, and that's basically the double the average of the UK job growth in general. So again, there are a lot of opportunities, and today we're about to talk to you about one of the opportunities to kind of join us as an agency, to just kind of show you that there is different avenues into the creative industry, depending on your strength and depending on what you want to carve your career as. And I'll hand you over back to Laura, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of exactly what it is that we do here.
Amazing. Thanks, Sarah. So what we have got here is just a little bit of a breakdown of some of the teams that we have within our studio. So client leadership, which is where myself and Matilda, who you'll hear from shortly, work, and all of the different kind of roles that fall in within that. Strategy, again, the guys will talk to you a little bit more, but also the studio. We do within that have an incredible amount of talent across 2D, 3D, motion, comms, copywriters, there's everyone. Outside of this, we're very fortunate to have a brilliant production team who make sure that everything goes out in the right way, that we're not doing anything that we shouldn't be doing, make sure that stuff can actually come to life. We've got a brilliant workshop where we do lots of model making, lots of mock-ups, lots of incredible stuff happens down there as well. So this is some of the kind of bigger teams in our studio, but there's lots more people that are part of our kind of Design Bridge and Partners family that make sure that all of the day-to-day happens. So I'm going to hand over to Matilda, who's going to talk to you a little bit about client leadership.
Hi everyone, I'm Matilda. So client leadership is one of the kind of three major departments at Design Bridge, made up of a lot of different people. I think the best way to kind of start off by describing CLT is that no day is the same, and every brief and every client has very different requests and needs that you kind of have to bend yourself to fix every day. But in general, the client leadership team look after the day-to-day running of the creative brief and of the client, of your kind of respective clients. We're the first port of call for our clients, so they'll be emailing us, we'll be jumping on calls to discuss the work, we will receive the initial briefs from them, and then from there we'll kind of draw up a quote which we'll send over to get approved, look at time plans to make sure that it kind of meets the deadlines that the clients have set, plan how we want to run the project alongside the creative and strategic leads, and then ensure that the work meets the objectives that the clients have initially set. I think a big part of the role in being successful in client leadership is being able to communicate well and clearly with not just your clients, which are of course really important, but people from across teams within the studio itself. As Design Bridge is made up of so many people, you've got to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all kind of working to the same goal for each of the projects. This is a little bit of an overview for how we would typically run a brief, but again, as I said, it really depends on the client ask and your timings and who you've got working on it and what kind of skill sets you need to make the client's brief a reality. So initially our clients will reach out to us, as I mentioned previously, with the brief. We'll sit down, we'll think about the best way to kind of attack the brief and make sure that we can help bring it to life, or as I mentioned, meet the goal set by the client. We'll then kind of speak to the creative leads. They'll kind of give us their opinion on what kind of skill set they think would be best to kind of work on the brief and help kind of craft it into a beautiful piece of work. We'll then kind of get the creative and strategic team started, looking at the work as it goes through. So we'll sit down again with not just the creative, but also the strategic team to kind of review the work up to date and make sure that it's kind of on track and it's not gone awry, which it it doesn't normally. We'll then kind of go through a few different rounds of that, so that we might have 2 or 3 rounds of development and refinement before the client finally signs off the work, and we kind of manage it through the process of artwork, so creating the high-res files that can then be sent out to kind of different print houses to be kind of printed onto packaging or whatever the kind of brief actually revolves around. And then it's done, and we wait to see it in real life on a supermarket shelf or on a billboard. As I mentioned before, to kind of be successful in the role, you need to be able to really communicate, but you also need to be social and enjoy just talking to people, really. Working well with others is a must. You need to kind of love collaborating and enjoy the process of hearing people's opinions and helping kind of take aspects of each person's way of working and build it into the kind of plan for the project. We like to inspire people, so maybe you're coming with a different viewpoint that you can kind of help almost tweak someone's initial way of thinking. That doesn't just go for the client, but that also goes for internally as well. We like kind of taking the responsibility of, you know, the project running smoothly onto our own shoulders, and make sure that we're organized with an eye for detail, so that we're not kind of missing things that might slip through the cracks. But mostly and above all, we're passionate about the brands that we work on, and we really kind of almost view ourselves as the client's representative in the studio, to make sure that it kind of fits in with the brand world set out for the brand, and it doesn't feel like it's going to kind of sit incorrectly within the rest of their range. I think it's design up next. I think that's the end of my slides. Oh, strategy, my bad.
Yeah, great. Hopefully you can all hear me. So hi everyone, I'm Jenny, and I work in the strategy team along with lovely Sarah, who spoke earlier, and Laura, who's in the room as well. I think what's quite interesting about strategy, and as Sarah's already alluded to, I guess you're all on the call because you're into something creative, but ultimately there's so many pathways into creative, and ultimately maybe you don't love drawing, but you love thinking about something creative or kind of exploring what design can do. And I think that's really where strategy is such an amazing place to play within the creative fields, and at Design Bridge especially. So to really, really simplify it, I guess strategy lives between the logic of, I guess, why the client's doing this, the business angle, essentially, how can we make money, make sense, and kind of link to what people want in the world, and then the creative execution. So we are essentially bridging that gap, defining maybe why a brand exists, what's the personality, who are they for, so whether that's in different countries, and really sort of dig out what the great opportunity is. So whether that's like for a new soft drink, a new kind of car, it could be pretty much anything. And basically, how can you stand out from the competition? And that could be a launch for today, but also what's really exciting is starting to think about how brands might play in the future, what a brand might be doing in 50 years, maybe when people don't want to drink alcohol anymore, what's going to be, I guess, lubricating that social moment. So I think that's what's really fun and exciting. And as Sarah's already said, I guess no day in strategy is the same. One day you could be researching trends, that could be going to an exhibition, maybe going to Selfridges for a little luxury shop. I think every day is really fun and really different, and working across the teams. So for instance, a couple of weeks ago, my week included thinking about what a luxury pasta brand could look like. So not selling it for 60p, it's actually selling it for £25. What does that mean? Thinking about unusual brand collaborations that could be a real amazing trending idea on socials, or even pushing sustainability. How can we, make a soft drinks brand not be in plastic? What was the next best thing? So a day in the life, I think, again, super varied, but essentially it's in 3 kind of different buckets. The first one about researching and planning, basically the who, what, why, where, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that comes down to looking at trends and insights and inspiring the design teams, developing different reasons why a new kind of product might exist, and writing different discussion guides. So essentially working with clients, finding that fresh perspective, what's the so what? And a lot of that could be around kind of copywriting, script writing, thinking about different brand propositions, and ultimately new design routes in, and essentially selling your big ideas. So going to presentations, getting used to chatting with clients, teams, and really selling in something really exciting. Already alluded to this, but there are many different ways into strategy. There's not like a strategy degree. You might do marketing, you might just be really fascinated by brands. So for instance, Lewis, who came through our entry-level scheme, the start, he came from a fine art and graphic design background. Henry, biology and chemistry, which is slightly rogue. Tom was a product designer, and Anna did a BA in English. So essentially, if you're interested in brands, you love kind of thinking creatively and essentially having all these big ideas, strategy could be a really interesting starting point for you. And big up Sarah in this picture here. I think quite often when you think about winning awards and really getting kudos for your amazing work, you think about the people that are designing up. But actually, there's great awards out there for people that have fantastic strategy and amazing ideas. And Sarah is our young contender 2022 absolute superstar. So it just shows that you can really have a place and make a mark in the industry through that lens as well. So could it be the right match for you? If you guys have never heard of strategy and you want to hear more, obviously do get back in touch. But I think as a bit of a top line, do you love kind of researching all about designs and crafting work? It's a bit of a chore, it's not something you really enjoy. You kind of have a thirst for knowledge and you're a sponge for everything new and next. What's the next big trend? A lot of it is about being curious around people and different cultures, uncovering what makes people tick. And ultimately just being passionate about working with creative people, having an eye for design and maybe expressing yourself creatively and essentially asking a lot of the big questions. You're not happy with just getting a brief and you really dig deeper into why are we doing this and what's going to make this different. So if any of these are a yes for you, then maybe strategy could be your perfect match. And then just a quick one, I guess a lot of you on the call may be more inclined to be doing designer work and might be thinking, okay, but why would strategy be good for me? As a pro, you get paid to share your point of view. So if you have those opinions, funnel it and get paid for it, which is great. You get to be involved with the bigger picture, be up there with clients and making those decisions, super varied. It's still really creative. It can be higher paid as you climb the ranks and have that opportunity to win awards, where it might be a con depending on what you love. You know, if you love crafting and building sort of amazing packaging, videos, whatever it is, it might not be for you. You might not get that experience of seeing something in the supermarket and going, well, yeah, I created that, but know that you're part of the journey. And instead of creating something beautiful, it's all about beautiful insights as well, and essentially getting used to presenting. So that's a bit of a top line, quite a lot to cover, but I hope that gave you a bit of an insight into what the strategists do. And I'm going to pass over to Leah in the studio side.
And also, and I'll let Emily introduce herself as well.
I am Emily. I am a designer in the studio alongside Leah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the final piece of the puzzle with this, and that is the design side. So if we go on to the next page. So when we were trying to work out what we're going to say to you guys, I think the main thing that came to my head is, I mean, I don't want to patronize you guys. I know you probably all know exactly what, you know, we do as designers, but I know that from my personal experience growing up, or even now, to be honest, after 10 years in this industry, people still ask me what it is I do. They still don't understand. They're like, do you do fashion? Do you do architecture, buildings, and all of that sort of stuff? I think design covers so much that it can be a bit confusing. So ignore me if I'm patronizing you, but we're going to break down a little bit in terms of what we do and what sort of covers. So that could be anything from brand design, packaging design, web design, publication, magazines and things like that, or cover designs for books. So many different areas that you can work in within graphic design. But us in particular, we look at, we go to the next page, branding, and next page after that, and packaging design. So these are what we sort of focus on within Design Bridge, and that's what we're going to sort of break down for you guys today. The next page. So how do we do this? So we use, like the guys have mentioned, the brief from CLT and get that story, get understanding about the client and what it is that they're trying to do. We get the strategic thinking from strategy. So what's going to make it different? How are we going to sort of, you know, bring something new to this product or this campaign or whatever it is that we're doing? And then we create all the visual systems and aesthetics. So we make things look shiny and pretty, and do all of the all of the drawing, basically, long story short. So we're going to take you through a little bit of a journey in terms of one specific project and like how we got from that beginning part to the end shiny product. So Emily is going to talk us through the step-by-step process on the Portland & Mason's Platinum Jubilee collection that we worked on.
So this is quite a nice, in terms of, although we're using this project in particular, this is quite a nice look into the kind of process of how most projects go. Although this is a start to finish, quite often with the design, as everyone else has said, no day is the same. You might be jumping into this halfway through. Sometimes you'll only be refining. Sometimes you'll be doing the first ideas. Sometimes you get to do the whole thing. So it's just interesting to see the whole process laid out. So in this case, you start with a brief that you get from CLT. You have to sort of, you look at the brief and you think about the brief in context of the client as well. So in this case, it was to bring a Fortnum's twist to a Platinum Jubilee range that we were designing. So once you have the brief, you start by doing research. So this can be desk research, where you're kind of looking, you're all over the internet, you see what's out there already, you're looking at trends, visual research, and also kind of stories. You dig deeper into the brief, you kind of pick out those like fun little tidbits that are like extra special ideas that can build into the design ideas. But as well as just kind of, you're not always, it feels like as a designer, you might spend your whole day just sitting at your computer churning out designs, but actually, you know, quite often research involves going out into the world, going to exhibitions, going into stores quite often, seeing what's out there already, and really like immersing yourself into the world of the brief. So once you've done all that really lovely research and you've found all your really good hooks that are going to give you the best and most interesting design idea of the year, we tend to then go into territories, which is essentially like a fancy word for big ideas. So usually we'll go back to the client with 2 to 3 of these, and we normally accompany them with a mood board. And so mood boards are kind of essentially a visual, sort of just a visual representation of the idea that just helps sell it in, I suppose. So in this case with the Jubilee, we had 3 territories. One was tradition with a twist, which was kind of looking at sort of all the heritage, traditional ways of doing Jubilee things in the past, but sort of bringing a modern twist to it. The Jubilee collection, which is all kind of based on sort of the people like collecting stamps, the Queen's face being on everything, and how you could bring that into the Fortnum's range. And then Behind the Crown, which was basically looking not just at this sort of figurehead, it's sort of looking at the stories, finding out more about her as a person rather than just her as a figure. So that one, third route, was what was chosen. And so once the territory is chosen, that's when we go into actually developing what does this idea look like in the world. So in this case, we created the lovely idea of creating a crown out of these stories to do with the Queen. So often you'll have a few different explorations, a few different ways of doing this. In this case, we've got one that focused more on kind of British like plants and foliage to create this crown. Second one was more on kind of the architecture of the UK that makes it really unique. So you've got kind of Westminster Abbey, you've got Greenwich, you've got all those things that kind of make up the crown. And then the third one was the stories specifically about the Queen, little secret things that no one you might not know about unless you kind of were really royalist or you really want to look into it. So it's kind of bringing those to light and really highlighting those things. I think here's a really nice place as well to mention that design is a lot about collaboration, and though it's probably viewed from the outside as like, you know, you have to be really great at illustrating, like photography, everything, it's about the ideas really. So on this case, one of the designers came up with the concept, the sketch, and kind of the elements, and then we brief an illustrator whose whole role is to craft beautiful illustrations. So, you know, if you're feeling like I want to be a designer but I'm not actually that great at like drawing, you don't necessarily need to be. It's just, you know, various different skills, and we also always collaborate with lots of different people.
Yeah, and I think you'll find as well that a lot of people do have their areas that they specialize in. So a lot of people, you know, can draw, but then some people might be more into typography. We have loads of people here that are really great at photography as well. So I think everyone's got their own niche. You don't have to be perfect at everything.
So we go into the next one. So then, yeah, once we've kind of got our design is developed, we've got the idea, it's nailed in, that's when we go into refinement, and that's where essentially we do all of the fiddly crafting and we make things kind of perfect, ready to go. And we work into illustrations a bit more. This is when you spend the time nudging type up and down 1 millimeter at a time to get it in the perfect place in the pack. And all the things like that is what happens at the design refinement stage until you've created something that is ready to go and to roll out across lots of things sometimes, and sometimes on one specific pack. So the Jubilee range went across a huge number of things. So it was on tins, it was on cups. You can see kind of how you can take the pattern, and it doesn't just have to be this thing in its entirety. You can take parts away. That's kind of the thinking, you know, it's how things don't have to be sort of plonked on. You can kind of expand it. And this one was really interesting as well because it didn't just sit on packaging, it became this huge physical crown, and these elements were broken out and created separately that were in the windows of Fortnum & Mason as well. So you see that design, although we work a lot in branding and packaging here, it can go anywhere, you know. Your designs can end up also over all sorts of things, which is, I think, one of the most exciting things about being a designer is you're in Sainsbury's and you go, oh hey, I worked on that, or you know, all those things. It's one of those lovely perks of being a designer, I think.
Definitely. And I think one of the things I love most about this design is like how we are able to sort of combine the two elements of the brief, which are Fortnum's and Mason's, and also the Queen as a brand within herself. So obviously we've got all of those beautiful elements that we mentioned about the Queen and her reign, but I love that we've just sort of simply used the Fortnum & Mason colour, which is Eau de Nil, as the sort of standout element that sort of represents them. So I feel like it's sort of 50% each of those two things and sort of like comes together perfectly, which I'll say the brief, long story short. And that's everything from us. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, great. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what we do and how there's so many different exciting pathways into the creative industry, and especially Design Bridge and partners. So if you are interested in kind of coming and joining us and having a bit of a taste, we do have a really exciting entry-level brief, which is a year-long contract to work alongside us, delving into one of the 3 specific kind of design ways in. And I think we wanted to kind of share what that brief is, how you can get involved, and use this forum as a bit of an opportunity to ask any questions and get a bit more information from us. So this programme is called The Start. It's had a few different names and been rebranded over the years, but essentially ever since Design Bridge and Partners has existed, we've always wanted to encourage new talent, and we don't want it to be a case of, oh, you can only come if you come to this university. That's not how creativity works. It's all about making sure people that have amazing design ideas and creativity can come and be a part. Ultimately, because it's a year-long contract, if you want to kind of take part and be involved in this, is ultimately you're not still at school or uni or college, you are able to take that year long and be with us for that full slot, because there are a lot of intern opportunities out there, but quite often if it's just like a couple of weeks or maybe a month, you can't really get the full idea of what work in the creative industry is like. So we really pride ourselves on having that year opportunity, and you get to see a project through, which is really exciting. So if you have your phones at hand, there is a QR code on the left, but we can share the details in future. But this gives you the platform, so you don't have to be scribbling down the notes now. It will all be captured for you, so you can look at a later date. So it's, like I've already mentioned, it's a multidisciplinary entry-level programme. So graduate is almost, the intention is that you're at a stage where you're ready to kind of take on a role, but it doesn't mean you have to have achieved a degree. Again, you just have to be really creative. So it's that year-long accelerated programme. And we're really passionate about getting people from outside of Design Bridge, so we're not biased to come in and judge a lot of the entries. So it means that we get a real sense of that creative hub. So with the 3 disciplines, depending on what you've heard today and what you're interested in, there are 3 different windows in. The first off being, do you see yourself as more as a Matilda, a natural leader, someone that's strong at communicating, gets excited around problem solving, have an entrepreneurial mindset, just generally thrive on getting the best out of others and your clients, so that you might want to enter the client leadership particular one. Second one, if you're a big thinker like Sarah, me, and Laura, are you a sponge for trends and culture? You're really inspired by design, researching and understanding and writing to express yourself. The strategic brief might be for you. And I imagine everyone on the call is very creative, but if you specifically want to kind of get into the design world as a designer firsthand and get hands-on, whether it's through 2D, 3D, animation, illustration, advertising, so many ways in, that creative design brief could be for you. So I'll get to the point, the brief. So everything we do at Design Bridge and Partners is all about original thinking at heart. So like Emily's already said, you don't have to be the best illustrator, the best. It's someone that really loves to think creatively. So we're looking for really compelling, bold, innovative ideas. We work with clients every day. They give us constrictions, but this is a moment to really express yourself and do something really fun that basically reflects your style, what you like, what your passion point is. So we've got some big issues that speak directly to an audience, and we love a good story. So essentially, pick which discipline best suits you. And then we've got what we've called our brandomizer, that essentially generates a bespoke brief for you, which takes on a brand, an issue, and an audience. And it essentially creates a fresh brief. So I guess if you don't like the first one that comes up, you could just click again and see what best suits you, send along your CV, and we'll be judging them all together. And I'll tell you what all the dates are shortly. But essentially, we'd love to see something visual, keep it really simple. We don't want to make this a real headache for you, but essentially keeping it to 5 pages max. If it's the design brief, keeping a real clear design, simple visual system, slides to just showcase your best ideas. If video or animation is the best way that you express yourself creatively, then great. So the brief, we work with so many different brands, as the first kind of section that Laura took you through showed. There's so many that we deal with. So we've got a selection here from Harvey Nichols, Durex, VO5, Adidas, National Geographic, Nintendo, Nestle, NASA, Nespresso. So quite a broad mix. And then so a few different issues, whether that's on climate change, gender inequality, mental health, accessibility, and fast fashion, and a whole range of different people that we want to appeal to on that audience on the right. The elderly, a parent, a career-driven millennial, primary school child, your local community, or the government. So essentially, design can be really broad. So I think it's a real great opportunity to not just design for what we like, but what a different audience can like. So hopefully this page is going to play. So if you click through onto that QR code, you may have already come across this, our randomizer, where you kind of select and pull down that button, and it will generate that brief. So on this occasion, we've got Harvey Nicks, gender inequality, and it's gone, but it could be any of the above. So essentially create that bespoke brief for you. So the different briefs are, if you are interested in the client leadership year one, it's all about creating an elevator pitch for this brand that comes up, and ultimately what's your point of view, and pitching it around the issue and your audience. So ultimately thinking about what the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, and demonstrating, have a look at the DesignBridge Partners website to get a bit of inspiration, but ultimately thinking about the challenges and why DesignBridge would actually be the right partner for this brand. Actually, I'd probably ask you what the kind of best thing would be. But otherwise, on the strategy one, it's preparing a trends point of view for this brand that comes up with an issue and your audience. So for example, it might be a trends point of view on how Nespresso could address climate change for targeting the elderly, a real mix. So ultimately, how do you show what opportunities, what creative big ideas could help address this one? And then finally on design, it would be creating for the brand and the issue and the audience, essentially a creative response on what the brand could stand for, and how it could be super bold and original with visual storytelling, crafted brilliance, and ultimately how you can use the different assets that you see across a brand. When we say assets, that could be the colour, the logo, the sort of imagery, and essentially how you can remix this to really suit that issue and target audience, and essentially what's the big idea. That's what we're most excited about. So design visuals would be great, obviously for the design route, but having a little bit of a kind of couple lines rationale just to really explain what you're trying to do. So D-Day, what's the dates? So it's coming up quite soon. Our final deadline for entries is Monday, the 10th of July. So I guess that's sort of month and a half. All entries must be uploaded as a PDF with 10 megabytes being the max. We can share the link in the chat at the end of this as well, with all the details, if this was a bit of a whirlwind tour of the brief. But essentially, we'd love to have all the applications coming in. If you're kind of not sure which, I guess, disciplines for you, come and chat to us, drop us a message. We don't want you to be doing all 3 of these briefs. That would take up a lot of your time. But yeah, we're more than happy to chat and explain what might be the best fit. Yeah, we're aiming to review the applications in early July, and we're really looking forward to seeing, and hopefully maybe one of you might join us in the coming year. And last year's winners, you might recognise someone on the right that's already been on the call. So it really is, it's kind of a really exciting way. The creative industries can feel like a real impossible thing to break into, but we really do pride ourselves on being able to invite everyone in from all sorts of different backgrounds to come and work with us for that year contract. So yeah, that could be you next year. Yeah, we'd love to see your entry. So yeah, if you miss that QR code and you've got your phone at hand, please take a screenshot or take a pic, and that'll give you a bit more details. Great, so thank you everyone for being on the line today, and perhaps it's given you a bit of inspiration on perhaps how broad the creative industry is. Maybe you've learned a few new things, maybe you've learned something you don't want to do, but yeah, we really enjoyed kind of sharing our perspective with you. And we are on the line to answer any more questions, and it can be quite daunting on these platforms sometimes, so I think there's a chat box if anyone wants to kind of drop something in there, and we're more than happy to answer anything else. It's your chance to ask us some questions.
We've got one for the design team that's in there at the moment. Indy's asking, what in the Mason's peacock design, did we do it? Do you know?
So yeah, we were just having a look at that. So we actually didn't do the peacock design, but we thought it'd be a good opportunity to chat with you guys about the fact that a lot of brands have a few agencies or like freelance designers on their rosters, so they are not secluded just to one design agency. Lots of people just can often get to work with them sometimes. So yeah, that one's an particular one, but it's
Yeah, and I'm just quickly looking at the chat now. So first off, I hadn't mentioned that, yes, this is a paid opportunity. Again, that's such an important thing to just stress, that we don't want anyone to ever work for free. If you're working, you're getting paid. So yes, this is a full-time, it's like an entry-level kind of payment, as if you were kind of starting off as a junior, whether it's account manager, designer, strategist. So yes, that is a salaried role. So it's not just covering your travel, it's a proper paid position. You're one of the team, basically.
And then I saw there's another question down there that was talking about age restrictions, and that was something that we were speaking about as well. We were saying that there isn't an age restriction, you just need to be old enough to basically be willing to take a year out of your life, because you have to be there all the time, basically. But no, I think it's basically, if you want to participate and you're willing to take the year off to join us, then yeah, we're good to go.
Loads of great questions. So there's another one that's, what makes a project stand out to you? That's a biggie. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's for anyone specifically. Do you want to kick off design?
That's a tricky question, because we work on it for such a long time. I think maybe what ideas stand out to us, or me particularly, and share your opinion on this. But for me, what stands out to me about an idea is usually, one thing that we say at Design Bridge is that we always try and keep people at the heart of something, and I feel like you can always tell when something makes sense, or that it's something that will be effective in the world, is when you can sort of see how people would relate to it, whether it's through emotional things or if it's all connects with them in some other way, culturally or whatever. I think those are usually the best ideas. The actual physical form of it, or the aesthetic, there's so many different possibilities for ways that you can sort of execute things, that I guess it just, again, sort of how does it connect to the demographic? How does it work for them? How are we answering the brief properly? How are we always sort of making sure that it just makes sense, that it's not just pretty for pretty's sake. It's not just visually appealing, but it doesn't actually make any sense to work within the world. I think those are the things that we focus on the most. Because as designers, we are jack of all trades, so we like everything shiny and pretty. We like everything that's sort of is visually appealing. So I think it's mostly rooted in the actual idea itself, and how well we've answered the brief from the team.
Tenny.
I would say exactly the same thing. It's the ideas of really what stands out to me, because as you said, pretty for pretty's sake is always lovely, but the ideas that really hit home are pretty and then rooted in really great thinking, I think.
Tenny asked,
a message saying, asking questions about the CV versus your project. I think for strategy and client leadership, it's kind of a mix of both. I think when designers apply, of course, they've got portfolios and other things to show as the application process goes on. But I would say it's your project is super important, because your CV might not yet be fully formed as you enter a new industry. So I would say, do think about them as a combination. If you feel your CV doesn't have things on it that you think you can do already, then show that in your project, definitely.
Yeah. And also sometimes what you might think is not important, maybe your hobbies, your passion points, can actually feed in directly into some really great projects. Like one of the guys on our strategy team, he created his own kind of gaming platform, and now it really influences the sort of work that he gets put on. So I think you can kind of almost manifest in certain ways what projects you want. Like for me, I love doing all things sort of sustainability driven, and if you shout about it, those projects do come your way. So I think it's kind of a mixture of both, and actually answers the question that you guys were chatting about earlier. Almost having a sense of purpose in the work you do is important, or you might really love crafting. So I think it's, yeah, being able to just express through your kind of submission what you like doing, and then we can see if there's a kind of desire for that on the team as well.
And to answer the question about portfolio, to enter this program, the portfolio isn't stage one, the project is. So treat the project as showing what you can do. Your portfolio will become part of the process as we talk, as things progress. If you do come down to like the final two, I guess, things like that become more important.
Elliot asked, how long does a project generally last, and how?
I think you're saying something, but I can't hear you.
No, hold on.
I think we can hear you.
Go again.
Now?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Elliot said, how long does a project generally last, and how many people are usually involved by the end of it? Laura and Matilda?
That's a very difficult question to answer in many ways, because I think it really depends on the request from the client. I think sometimes, and Laura, please chip in if you disagree, I think, as I said, it can really depend, but sometimes you'll be working on what we call a sprint. So that's where you're working at pace to get something out for a deadline. Or sometimes if it's a bigger project, like you're looking at a new structure for a brand, or you're kind of revisiting the brand's identity, that can go on for a lot longer, so maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe longer. I mean, there really isn't a solid answer to that. And then in terms of who it will kind of, how many people will be involved in it, I think for a lot of projects, it will kind of be touched by every department in the studio. So by the time that you're kind of releasing work, maybe 15, 20, 25 people possibly have been involved in kind of the journey from start to finish. Laura, I don't know if you have kind of a differing opinion to that, but
No, all over it. What she said.
a sprint can sometimes be like as short as, sorry to finish, a sprint can sometimes be as short as like 4 weeks or 6, or maybe it goes on even for 2 or 3 months. So it can really depend again on what the client needs delivered.
Yeah, and almost a project is such like a big thing. Even underneath that will be so many separate like bits of kind of work streams. So it might be like the guys are saying, crafting up a piece of work, or the ideas stage. So I think each of them can flex. I mean, when you work with really big brands, I mean, it takes a long time sometimes for a project to launch, or suddenly something might happen like the Jubilee and you need a demo in a month. So I think, yeah, varies hugely, but
clients love pushing us on how quickly we can get stuff done. And sometimes you'll look at kind of an ask and you'll think there is no way we can get that in 3 or 4, maybe 5 weeks. And then suddenly blink and it's finished and it's out and you're looking at it, you know, and it's in your hands, which is something that I find really kind of exciting, the possibility to see it out in the real world, and it's not just this internal kind of thing.
Yeah. I think, Joanna, I think that's a really good follow-up question about what's expected in terms of overtime. I think the reality is that we really value work-life balance, and we want to make sure that everyone has the headspace to be creative. That's such an important part of value that we bring to our clients. If our teams, and if we don't have the time to be inspired to see things in the world, then the work that we do suffers. So it's really important for us to do it. Inevitably, as part of kind of all jobs, every now and again, you have a late night, you just got to get something done, get it out. But it's absolutely not something that is expected of you at Design Bridge and Partners. We really strive for that balance.
yeah, and typically if that has been the case, there's normally a really big celebration afterwards. So I think it's like, yeah, there's a balance to be done, but I think, yeah, it's important to have both. And when you work with such a lovely bunch, it's sort of, it makes it better when those moments do happen.
And on top of that, as a junior, you're not expected to work overtime. I mean, you shouldn't be on anything that is making you work overtime, especially when you're first starting out. People above your pay grade should potentially be picking that up. So hopefully that answers that part of the question too. And I believe earlier, Tenny asked, what is your favorite thing about your job? For me, I'd say is the fact that you can kind of craft it to fit your personal like wants and needs and like what you're passionate about. For me personally,
I'm obsessed with everything beauty and personal care, and I basically voice this out, and I'm able to work on personal care and beauty projects versus working on any other projects. And that's kind of, other people in the team have passions for beer and they get to work on those specific brands. So the business really hears you in terms of what your passions are, and they kind of cater the projects that you work on based on you, on what you want and your needs. And besides that, it makes the work fun as well. When you get to actually work on things that you like and you're enjoying, it makes it fun, but you also have the opportunity to challenge yourself by working in alternative categories. So you're not just kind of boxed in as one specific, into like one specific niche, more or less. And ultimately, after like we finish working, we do enjoy ourselves. Like we have a great time. We celebrate majority of the times at parties. So we definitely do know how to let loose. So I feel like this job is very flexible in the sense that we work hard, but we definitely play harder. As corny as that sounds, but it is true.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Sarah's right. It does really differ. So what I really thrive off my favorite thing is team energy. I love it when everyone gets together. You have a big kickoff brief. You get to do something fun, like go out and drink Aperol spritzes, or go and like dive into Harvey Nicks, like whatever it is. I love that kind of team energy, bonding, everyone getting really excited and passionate about the different ideas and opportunities that our clients and our briefs offer. So I think you can absolutely, you get a little bit of everything across Design Bridge.
Yeah. And as an example of that, I'm just remembering now, at Christmas, we had a Christmas brief for a well-known gin brand, and it was really fun because we had like mince pies. Some of you guys dressed up in Christmas gear, the Christmas music on, and like it was just a really fun brainstorming session. So I think what's nice about being in this industry, like we're not serious. There's moments where we have to be, I guess, but I think it's just, you make it fun. And essentially in our business, we're selling something fun and entertaining. So if we're not having fun, then I guess, the consumers aren't either. The consumers, the people that buy it. So
from a like design perspective, I mean, everybody sort of talks about it, but it's just creating something from nothing for me. It's like we just started with some words on paper, and we have this thing that's just it. So I think that's always like a really fun thing to see, especially when you like actually have something tangible that you can sort of say that you did and that you're part of.
Someone has Daria has asked, is there any possibility to enter the creative market from outside of the country as a freelancer? For our specific brief, you definitely have to be located within the UK and be able to work within the UK. But in general, in terms of the creative industry, there are a multitude of avenues to enter the creative industry from wherever you are within the world. I don't know if you caught the first part of our call where we spoke about the fact that we have studios within 16 different countries within the world. So there are different places that you can pursue your creative career in those specific offices or in that region of the world. And definitely as freelancers, sometimes we do use freelance resource, depending whether it's client leadership, strategy, or design. So there are a multitude of avenues if you are a freelancer, and that's what kind of you want to work in different parts of the world. But for the specific start brief, we're definitely looking for people who are able to work within the UK. And conscious of time, does anybody have any last minute questions, any burning things that you want to ask us? Because I believe we are running out of time.
And all of the details are on our website. So do have another look at the PDF. Everything's outlined there, the instructions for what to do. So more questions about the start can definitely be answered in there, and keep an eye on our Instagram. We've got some more content coming up about days in the studio and things like that as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. I was just going to say, in conscious of the work-life balance with the chat we were just having, we've hit 6:30, so I think it's a great time to wrap up. But thank you so much, everyone, for that. It was such a great such a great session. The roles look absolutely, I don't know, they look great, and it's a really good introduction to the creative industries and agency life as well. It's where I came from before, and I was sort of looking at all of it like, this is spot on, and it really encapsulates all of it as well. Just as a reminder for everyone else on the call, the email, if you've got any questions, is in the chat, and there'll be a recording of this being sent round to all participants. Should be tomorrow as well. Keep an eye on your emails through for Eventbrite, and it will be on our YouTube too. For anyone on here who hasn't been on a program with Creative Mentor Network as well, I'm popping a link in the chat right now as well. You can always go to our website and have a look there. We've got more jobs and opportunities on the jobs board. We've got our mentoring programs as well, which you can look at and sign up for too. But yeah, thank you to everyone at DesignBridge for your time this evening. It's been fantastic. And yeah, have a lovely evening, everyone.
Our pleasure.